hailing frequencies are open.
And we are live here on Warped Wednesday. Whoop whoop. So I am one of your hosts this evening, Stu Jackson, here on this special Star Trek Livingstone special. And with me we have the captain of the Livingstone himself, Captain Alan Wagner. Alistair, how you doing, Alistair? Yes, indeed. Indeed. Well, of course, we've had a sneak preview into Season 3 right at the end of Season 2. I'll be playing that a little bit later. But for now, we're going to be having a look. So rather than the usual fare with Warped Wednesdays, I'm saying usual, there's been one episode so far. But rather than the standard sort of news, reviews, unboxing, that kind of thing, we are focused completely on the Star Trek Livingstone. So how would you... Right, let's say an alien, a Vulcan's just dropped onto the planet Earth, Alistair, and you want to get them watching Star Trek Livingstone. How would you explain it to them?
Isn't it more chaotic than your usual Star Trek game? I think I would encourage people to check it out for that alone.
Alistair, you're going to absolutely hate me, but I think I had your audio muted throughout almost all of that.
The greatest answer in history lost.
I'm so sorry. Maybe that's a question we'll revisit at the end, just to get you going. But you did.
I can think of a better answer as well.
Yeah.
I did. Yes. Yeah. I hope everyone had a great festive season and that Santa was good to you all.
Yes, absolutely. He's great. I know him. So yeah. So apologies for the minor glitches, and hello to Captain Quinn there in the chat. I'm still sorting out the glitches from Warped Wednesdays, but we'll get there. Had one last week as well, never mind. So we are here to talk about Star Trek Livingstone now. Alistair, you are the newest member of the crew, but you're a long-time viewer, aren't you?
I am, yeah. I was very much enjoying the show for some time before I was able to come aboard. It's been a real treat getting to sneak behind the theatre curtain and join the actors on stage for a bit.
Which is better?
Do you know, I have to say, I genuinely still really miss that. Like, you know, that when you've got your favorite podcast or stream or something that you take like an hour or two each week and you sit down and you have it on with you in the evening or something. I genuinely still really miss that time with Star Trek Livingstone of just being a viewer and being like, okay, you know, there's a quiet couple of hours, like let's do Star Trek Livingstone. Is, you know, I guess when you find things like that for a role-playing game, right, whether it's Star Wars or Star Trek or any kind of franchise thing, lots of people have it, I guess, with Dungeons and Dragons, things that we don't think of as sort of big TV or film franchises. You almost come to think of it as like an extra version of the show you love, right? You know, there's Strange New Worlds, there's Lower Decks, and there's Livingstone. So yeah, still miss that.
Okay, well, you can still watch it, you know, as a player. It's there.
And I do. I do. Yeah.
Good man, good man. We need those viewing figures. Um, so, hello to Ben in the chat there. Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, all that good stuff. And to everyone watching, whether you're in chat or not. But do shout out a quick hello to us if you're watching. That'd be great. So we're going to talk about where we've got to so far in terms of Livingstone. Not so much in the story, because we did a big wrap up of that, but kind of where we are in terms of the ship itself, a little bit about each of the crew members, bit of the history and lore surrounding it. So I mean, it's interesting you say there, Alistair, about, you know, it's like, feels like it's another series in the canon, basically, because I go to great lengths to try and make it, if not canonical. I mean, I like to think of it as canonical, but not interfering with existing canon. And there was one character that nearly scuppered me quite a bit. We'll come on to her in a short while, that caused me ructions. But yeah, but before we get into it, of course, your nerdiness, and it was International Nerd Day just the other day, so happy International Nerd Day to everyone. So yeah, your nerdiness doesn't stop with Star Trek, does it? Your day job is quite a geeky one.
Absolutely, yes. So I'm a part of the extended team that work on probably our best known game is the horror co-op game Devour. We're also developing a game called Cult of Cards and another game called Hobble. So I'm kept very busy at the moment between those various projects. But I know you're a fan of Devour, particularly, Stu.
Oh, Devour and the Watchers, yes, absolutely.
Yes, can't forget the Watchers.
And speaking about people watching, we're joined by Chris as well. Hello, Chris.
Hi, Chris.
Hello, hello.
Hey. Fantastic. Zankir Bav Gronak himself with us on deck.
Permission to come aboard, Captain.
Permission
Granted.
granted. Oh, sorry, yes. I don't know, am I the captain of the stream? What's going on here? So Devour, you've got some big things happening with Devour at the moment, haven't you?
We do, yeah. So coming up before too long, we have the new map dropping for Devourer. So if you're a fan, the new map's going to be called the Slaughterhouse. And as the name Slaughterhouse suggests, it's going to be our most blood and guts map yet. So if that's your taste in horror, you're not going to be disappointed. You can actually jump onto Steam already and see some little preview images for that, including a very mean-looking meat grinding machine and some terrifying undead boars. So yeah, if you're a fan, jump on, check it out. You don't have too long to wait for that dropping.
Oh, awesome. Can't wait. And maybe we ought to revisit with a special Fright Day.
When it's Fright Days.
When that drops, yeah. Chris, so glad you could join us. How's your holidays been?
It's been busy. I'm glad that I like Christmas. I like the holidays, but I'm kind of glad we're out of it, just because I now get to relax for a month or so before the chaos starts again.
I sympathise. I mean, no, I don't have children, like yourself.
Yeah.
But well, I kind of have to deal with a lot of children over the period.
Yeah, you probably interact with more than I do over the holidays.
Just these shorter bursts. More screamers, yeah. I expect. Get a lot of screamers.
I want to make a joke there, but I'm not going. I'm not going to do it.
No. That's moving swiftly on. So we're here this week to talk about Star Trek Livingstone and its return in 2 weeks' time tonight. Oh, we're excited. 25th of January. Big shout out, of course, to our other crew members. So Ed Wilson, of course, who plays Elian Rahl. We've got Amy, who plays Davok. We've got Matt, who plays Bosch, and Matt has something very, very special happening in just 8 days' time. He's going to get married. Very exciting.
Congratulations.
Oh, congratulations to Matt.
We are wishing Matt and Jess all the very, very best for that. So, let's see. How much do we know about Livingstone? Let's see. Who can tell me? I'm not doing this as a quiz the whole way through, but I'm just like intrigued as to how much you guys know. There are no prizes, definitely not. But who can tell me what year Livingstone is set?
Oh God, I should know this.
Ben.
I would say 20. No, 2349.
Sorry, I wasn't sure if you glitched and just froze then. It's not 23.
No, I want to say close.
2376.
That's closer. That's closer.
I'm going to say
Ben guesses 2386.
Let me give you a clue. Ben is also close, but not as close as you, Alistair. So if I tell you that it's set 1 year after Star Trek Nemesis and those events, and it is the same year of Lower Decks Season 1.
2379?
Oh, so close. 2380.
Oh.
Yes, Nemesis was set 2379. But yeah, 2380. So one of the reasons why when setting all this up way back in the day was because Lower Decks had just dropped, and I really wanted to go with the Lower Decks flavour for the whole thing. So I thought, why not set it the same year? There we go. So we've got the Packlet War to look forward to.
Yeah,
we're not quite there.
Yeah,
yet.
I definitely think the Lower Decks style fits us a lot better than other Trek styles. I think we fit the Lower Decks mold more than, say, Deep Space Nine, for instance.
Interesting you say that. I always feel we have a degree of darkness about the show. It does get pretty.
Yeah, but we always seem
sometimes.
to resolve everything by dicking around until it makes sense, which seems much more Lower Decks than anything else.
Yeah, definitely have a very good point. Now I can tell you our first star date. So the first mission was we actually went. We saw new crew arriving on the Livingstone under Captain Liera, and them having a flashback to the Kobayashi Maru. But the day that they boarded this new crew, who were, let's see, it was Elin Rahl, Davok, and Bosch and Lee Varon with the new crew members. That was on stardate 57075.8. And just for a little bit of curiosity, that was January the 28th, 2380 at 5 p.m. That's how specific we get, you see. And the reason it was January 28th?
That's because that was the day you were playing on, right?
Yes! Exactly. And our last log, so if I say that first log was stardate 57075.8, the most recent log, so this was part 2 of the scary horror one, was 57379.9. What date roughly do you think that is?
I feel
October 31st.
Interesting. No. There's a lot's happened in that time. We've had
Yeah,
two
I feel like at
seasons
least
worth,
a year's passed probably since the start of the campaign.
if I tell you that that last log was at 1 a.m. on the 19th of May, 2380. Everything that has
So
happened on the
5 months.
Livingstone has happened in 5 months.
Actor
Wow,
of GC. Give
yeah.
that team a
And
medal.
the
Yeah.
ship got retrofitted in that time, didn't it? Or was it? Did they just unlock all the Section 31 stuff that was already there?
So that's more what happened. Yes, it was unlocked essentially.
Okay,
So it
I wouldn't
was
say that is the
already
fastest turnaround time on a job like that I've ever heard of.
The Section 31 resources coming through. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, they can get the job done, as we know. Absolutely. So yeah, that's 5 months. It's incredible to think just 5 months. Oh, who knows the registration number of the Livingstone?
NX7035.
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't cheat.
You don't have your models.
Thanks,
There
Ed.
we
Yeah.
are.
I don't have a little model sitting right here.
Courtesy of Ed himself. Absolutely, very, very well done. Why? Do you know why it's an X class though?
Because it was
We've seen
experimental, right?
Defiant classes. It is. Funnily enough, we've had some YouTube comments about this from people over time. Not so much about this specifically, but they'll raise things like, you do know that the Defiant class doesn't have a ready room, or it doesn't have a sick bay, and things like that. Well, it's not your standard Defiant class. It's the Defiant class, but bigger scaled. So it is a a prototype, but based on an existing space frame. It's still sort of Defiant class with a bit.
Was
more
that was that a choice that you made at the start so that you could fit things like a ready room and extra cabin space and all of the things that you thought we might need in a game like this into the ship?
Yes and no. So when we built the ship initially, sat down with the crew, because obviously you joined at a late stage as well as Alistair. So
Yeah.
as the original crew and myself, we sat down and we created the ship using the Modifius ship and character creator, which is absolutely brilliant. One of the things that the crew chose was additional sort of science rooms and storage and that sort of thing. So I thought from there it made sense to just make it that bit bigger, that bit more scaled up. So officially, it is a crisis and emergency response vehicle rather than it being a warship. So there we go. It's obviously Federation starship, so these are the traits. Now, when we talk about traits, just for anybody who happens to be watching is wondering what the hell we're going on about, Star Trek Livingstone, we ought to mention this in the show, is an RPG game not based on, using the system of Modifius' Star Trek Adventures game. We play it fortnightly here on the channel. If you're here on the channel and you don't know about it, then welcome. Make sure you're watching in a fortnight's time. So the traits of the vehicle, it's Federation starship prototype, excessive power signature, Section 31 tech, and a cloaking device. Those are its official traits, but it is still called a Defiant class just because that's easier and people know what shape we're looking at. It obviously has a number of shuttles, which we'll come into in a moment, but it has a special captain's yacht, which is basically the nose section detaches and sprouts fins and can fly away. Who can remember the name of the captain's yacht?
It's Henrietta, I believe.
Yes,
I might be wrong
well
on that.
done, well done. So in terms of stats for Henrietta, I've taken the runabout class and beefed them up a little bit. Federation small craft, again, section 31 technology and a prototype. Tactical and support operations is her mission profile. Had to give the space frame a brand new name because it's a brand new, completely different type of craft. So I thought I'd give it, call it the Saddler class. Now, I'm intrigued if anyone knows why.
That is a Section 31 reference, right? Because of Sloane, played by William Sadler.
Yes. Well done. Oh, I'm impressed.
Boom.
I am impressed. That's exactly it. Now, shuttles. The Livingstone has 2 shuttles and 4 Type 18 shuttle pods. So I don't expect you to remember the names of any of them, unless you do. I'd be surprised if you do.
They're
What's
all
the one that
named
we
after
crashed on the
rivers.
planet recently? I should at least remember that.
Now that was Atlantis, which was different again. That was Shuttle Gertie.
Okay.
Yeah, all of the Livingstone ones, if I
Atlantis.
remember correctly, are named after rivers. I think is the Ganges one of them? Have we used the Ganges before?
That would be Deep Space
Or
Nine you're thinking of.
that's Deep Space Nine. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. What am I thinking of?
The runabout
We've
side.
got a theme for shuttles. I know that, but I can't
Well, we
remember
only have 2
what the
shuttles.
theme is.
There is a theme. There is indeed a theme. The theme is British astronauts.
Yeah, I can't remember the names of any of them.
Peak. So one is Shuttlecraft Peak, which is a Type 6 shuttlecraft. The other one is the Shaman, which is Type 10 shuttlecraft. I had to... So Ed came up with these. I had to ask him what Shaman was. At first I thought he was saying Shimmerman, like Armin Shimmerman, who plays Quark. But no, Shaman was Helen Sharman, who was the first Briton in space.
Oh, cool.
There you go. I mean, Ed's an absolute boffin when it comes to the space.
Oh, yeah. If Ed was here for any of these questions, we wouldn't have to say anything. Ed would know the answer to all of these.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And the 4 shuttle pods also have a theme to them. They are the Aaron, Rene, Anton, and Leonard.
Cast members' first names.
Yeah.
Very specific cast members.
Well, Anton Yelchin played
Chekhov.
Chekhov, thank you. Jeez, why couldn't I remember the name of Chekhov?
Nuclear Weapon.
Yeah, he played Chekhov in the JJ movies, and then obviously Leonard Nimoy. And who were the other ones that you said?
Rene Auberjonois was one of them.
And Rene, yeah. Rene
And Aaron
Auberjonois.
Eisenberg, Nog from
Aaron
Deep Space Nine.
Eisenberg, yes. What do
So
all
sadly,
the
I think
4 actors...
the common denominator is that they've all passed away, sadly, right?
Yes.
Ah,
It was
yeah.
a nice little way of commemorating them. And this was before Discovery. So spoilers for anyone. Discovery season 4. Discovery. Spoilers. But of course this was before we even saw the USS Nog, which was an Eisenberg class vessel. But yes, that's exactly it. And Livingstone, we know where the name Livingstone comes from, don't we?
I was waiting to see if Alistair was going to. Yeah, famous explorer.
Yes.
Which I can't remember his first name now. I feel dumb at the moment.
I feel Alistair should be giving us more details on Dr. David Livingstone.
Dr. Livingstone, yeah.
Where was he
And
from,
I
Alistair?
I don't know. I just,
What country was he from, Alistair?
Scotland.
Yes! Yeah, Scottish.
Are you starting to
village
think
just
you got
outside
the wrong
Leningrad.
2 crew members here, Stu?
No, I think we've got absolutely, definitely the right crew members here. And we got, of course, the plaque, which I'm going to call up on screen for our viewers. There we are. It's in front of us, but that doesn't matter. So there is the plaque for the Livingstone, which was created by Matt himself. So Defiant Class, Starfleet Registry NX 7305, launch stardate 48054.5. Very quickly, anyone tell me what year that was? I'm guessing not.
No.
Okay. 2371. She's actually 9 years old. 20th of January, if you want to be very precise. Launched at 9:15 p.m. The yard engineers, those of you who can see the plaque, you might notice is Captain 90% Stu, Commander Firelock, Lieutenant Commander Mad Turnip, Lieutenant Commander B Daddy, Lieutenant Mad Mophead. That is because those were our usernames in the Danger Club podcast Discord channel, where we all met. And we got the quote. We always have a quote on a plaque. I am prepared to go anywhere provided it be forward. And do you know, I'm not even going to ask if you know who that's from. It's from Dr. David Livingstone, obviously. So yeah, there we go. Is there anything about the ship that either of you want to ask, want to know, want to share that I've not shared?
It's hard to think of stuff that we didn't talk about in the wrap up, like when we last met.
Do you have a headcanon or notes for what it was doing in service before it came to this cruise tube?
That is a brilliant question. No. Is the answer.
Unexplored potential.
Captain the era. Well, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And who knows, it might have been involved in something and the crew come across someone who's encountered that ship before. We never know. It might happen. That's a good question. Do you know what? It never even occurred to me.
It was just when you asked the question about when it was commissioned, and I was expecting you to say a date much closer in to the start of the campaign. And I thought, Stu has ideas.
I was thinking it would be like 2376 or 7 when the ship was commissioned, but 9 years before we got hold of it. That's a long time for a ship to be in service. There's got to be some stories that happened before then.
Well, interestingly, I mean, it's not that long. Generally speaking, Star Trek starships last much longer than people realise. There are ships in service that have been in service for over 100 years.
I guess it's just all of the enterprises that are bringing the average down, right?
Exactly. Exactly. They're outliers on the statistical chart.
Yeah, when do we get the first Livingstone movie and get to blow one up? Cheers.
Well, funny you should say that. We've had a sneak preview, of course, from season 3 already. Which we'll be looking at. In fact, I'll tell you what, for the viewers, let's remind ourselves of that little sneak preview now. So there you go. It goes to warp and blows up.
Holodeck simulation must be holodeck.
No, the holodeck has much better graphics than that. Yeah. Yeah, so there's your answer. When do we get to blow it up? You don't even need a movie.
Yeah. Pretty soon, in fact.
Just like the original Defiant, of course, that got destroyed.
Yeah.
People forget. And then they just brought in the Sao Paulo and renamed it.
Problem solved.
How convenient.
Was a bit of a cop-out in my view, but there we go. Okay, now in terms of ships, of course, there's one other ship. We'll talk about the Atlantis as a completely separate thing, but there's one other ship that, as a crew, you've been on very recently as the hero ship, which is the good old Gantar Taurus. Looking very blankly there, Alistair. You were in on that game.
The Gantar
Was I here for that one?
Was
I
when
don't
we were
remember
in
the Gantar
the like this was the horror episode, right, Stu?
Yes,
The two-parter.
Yes,
Yeah, that was horrific. One of our crew phasered their own eye out. Doesn't get much more horrific than that, really. Yeah.
And I found out afterwards that Amy's got a particular thing about eyes.
Oh, really?
Oh,
Oops.
yes.
Sorry, Amy.
Yes, I know. And it's not the first time that something with Davok happened with eyes as well, I think. I seem to recall.
I think it's just an Amy thing.
Or was it Helen? From yeah. Question for me from Trek Wars and Fantasy. Hello, which is also Ben. That's fine, Ben. You can watch on as many channels as you like. That's fine. So, how close did I state the pre-written stories? Oh, and cast. What did you think of the story? So, I'll tell you. Yeah, let's go with what you thought of the stories first.
I honestly, there was a lot of. I was surprised by how complex some of the stories we were dealing with were, especially the arc that I sadly wasn't able to make it for most of, when we were on the planet that was destroying itself and having to think about whether we wanted to transport everyone off. Or I was very surprised by how complex that was, just the moral questions that were being asked and the prime directive questions that were being asked. And then as far as the horror stuff, it's just fantastic. Like I loved everything about those horror episodes.
Yeah, I guess it's worth mentioning that you use the Shackleton Expanse book, right, Stu, as kind of a bit of a foundation for some of the ongoing stories in the campaign. Is that fair to say?
I am now. The more recent stories have mostly been from there. Yes.
And thankfully, I think we're in a position where all of the players have never read the Shackleton Expanse source book, which is great for us because it's just as much of a mystery to us as to anyone who's watching. So I definitely felt that made it even more fun playing through the scenarios that I've been involved in, which probably fall more into that time where you've been using that book. Having no idea at all what's coming has been great.
Excellent. Well, it's So we're now using the Shackleton Expanse. We started off. The first adventure was the Kobayashi Maru. That was before either of you joined. And we did that because that is a good one-shot primer for the whole game. Then we moved on to what is the adventure path in the starter kit. And sorry, to answer the question, yes. So with the Kobayashi Maru, I didn't stick that closely to it. I have to say, most of the adventure paths are written very sandboxy. I'll literally get a single sheet of A4 paper with, these are some major things that happen. here are some minor things you might want to throw in as well. That's it. You know, it really is. I don't know if either of you have ever looked at any of the Adventure Path sheets.
Not in
for
detail,
this.
no.
I would
Very loose.
I just always feel with Livingstone, like the pre-written adventures are what make it a Star Trek role-playing game, and the way that you GM it, Stu, and the twists you throw in and how you respond to the players is what makes it a Livingstone game. Yeah, I feel like it has that really distinct identity because of that, and because of the way that you interpret the pre-written material. So yeah, nice work.
Oh, thank you. Certainly I've taken a lot of the adventure paths and embellished on them. So I kind of, as for the most part, I've stuck fairly close to it as written, but with more built on top, with more detail built in. So, for example, yeah, you mentioned that episode, Chris, or those episodes where you were on the planet and Decision Point, that adventure path was called, with the moral dilemma. So, for example, the aliens being these insectoids and sort of sharing this subconscious telepathy kind of thing. That was all stuff I added onto it. It was basically a scientific crew has landed on a planet and broken their ship, and the planet's going to blow up unless you do something. That was pretty much it as written.
Wow, because I thought that, on reflection, I thought that what you improvise, when I look back on that story, I thought was actually one of the keys to how we were meant to solve it that we didn't quite reach. I found myself wondering after we finished it whether we were meant to, because they shared this consciousness, whether we were meant to use the transport buffers to hold the physical makeup of one of them as like a cheat to transporting so many people away, because you would only have to worry about one physical body. But that was actually just an improvisation on your part. Okay.
That was so I don't mind admitting this, you know, after the event, that was actually deliberately to put pressure on you guys to feel the need to do something. In terms of solutions to the adventure pass, there are very few of the adventure pass that have solutions built into them. It's like, here's a problem, you tell me how you solve it. You know, there aren't, you know, there might be sort of, yeah, you might want to consider this route, you might want to consider that, but it really is absolutely wide open for you to be as inventive and creative as you like with it. And that's one of the great things I love about this game.
That's a great trick of any game designer, especially when you're running roleplay games like this. And there's a tip to any DMs or GMs out there: create problems that you don't have a solution for. Like, if you're running a game, build a trap that you don't know how to disarm, and then see what the players come up with. And guess what? Hey, they just stumbled upon the exact answer that they needed. It's a great way of letting them think outside the box. And I think that's what this system does fantastically, is letting the players think outside the box and giving the GM the room to improvise around that thinking.
Absolutely. And of course, the great thing about the whole system as well is you can change kind of a lot of the flavour just to suit. So, for example, the first horror AP we did, Psy Shift. Now that was a fan written AP. It wasn't an official Modifius one. It was a fan written one. Because I tried to find horror ones, and like literally that was the only one I could find. But it's a great AP anyway. So having the same commander on that station as you've got on Narendra station, that's flavour that has been created on top of the APs, for example. But I think that's a nice kind of touch and a reminder as to
that's
where
cool.
you've been as well. I like recurring characters, you know, and it's nice that we've got our own recurring characters in Livingstone.
Yeah, well, and it's fun when you do things like that, when it's like, this is a recurring character that we as players know, and as an audience, the audience knows who this person, but the characters, we had no idea what the significance of that person was, but it's just a nice little nod to everyone outside the game to say, hey, this person's going to do some stuff. You might want to watch this person.
One of the things I love about
Absolutely.
Modiphius as well is the way that you get that the players all playing like a couple of characters each as well. So you get that kind of feeling of that big ensemble cast that Star Trek always has as a show coming through the players rather than putting a lot of work on the GM to create a supporting crew around them. Yeah, I really like that about the system.
Yes. I mean, so as a GM, I don't mind running. I mean, I say I don't mind. Obviously, there are NPCs that will interact with the crew. But I'm the same when I GM other games and other systems. I'm not a fan of piloting a character within the party or the crew or things like
Yeah.
that. So when we started off, obviously Captain Vieira was the captain of Livingstone. I wanted to step away from that kind of as quickly as I could. Hence dropping Ed in it and making him captain. Which he's not anymore. He's lost his pip. Oh boy. Okay, so speaking of characters then, who's been your favourite? And this is obviously to the viewers as well. But who've been your favourite NPCs so far?
I was
Ooh,
really impressed by
NPCs.
the Discovery episode, the Lower Decks episode that you ran, Stu, which where you did the cast of Lower Decks as NPCs, and I was absolutely convinced that that was a pre-written adventure because I thought you were absolutely nailing the characterization and the kind of incidental moments that were bringing them together with the crew, and I was like, oh, this is a great pre-written adventure, a great good finding. And later you revealed to me that it was all improvised on the fly, which made it even more impressive. So yeah, I think that one really sticks with me as one where I was convinced that those NPC representations, those characters had pre-written work go into them, and you were sort of doing it on the hoof. So yeah, we'll go
Oh,
with
I'll,
that.
I'll take that. I'll take that compliment. Thank you very much. Yes, yeah, it was. This was when the crew returned to Narendra Station and basically had a sports day. Oh, from returned, I think it was the first time on Narendra, wasn't it?
For this crew, yeah, we'd already been there
The Atlantis.
in Atlantis, but
Yeah.
what was that? Yeah,
That's
that was the
right.
same.
That's right. Yes, yes. Yes, they arrive at Sports Day. It's the annual Sports Day, and the Cerritos was there, and yeah, that was just absolutely that whole episode off the top of my head. I did have an adventure written for that. For that day, but we just put it back a fortnight. So Chris, yeah, how about yours?
Um, I'm trying to rack my brain now. We've met so many NPCs. It's hard to pick them out. I have very fond memories of one from before I was even part of the stream. I really like the I can't remember his name now. The guy who in the Kobayashi Maru was caught cheating. And I can't remember what his name was now.
Derek.
Derek, that's it.
Derek
And then
Stallman.
was it his twin brother or something that came in later on? Or was it him
Slightly
himself?
older brother. Slightly
Okay.
older, but his older brother was called Eric.
That's right. I just remember the sense of frustration when Eric showed up from the group. So, oh great. Another one of these guys.
And Ben Kerno agrees because he said, I can't get a certain Brummy out of my head, he says.
Yeah.
And Captain Peter Quinn has come up with a brilliant NPC. Now, actually, you guys can tell me, does he count as an NPC? Q.
Ooh.
Because he
I
wasn't played
mean,
by me.
Yeah, he what?
Be a PC,
He
gonna be
is
a
technically a
PC.
non-player character.
Yeah, he wasn't playing. So yeah.
I don't know. I'm going to be the voice of dissension here and say he did have a role to perform though, right? Was he ad-libbing that, Stu?
No, I'll admit he was working to scripts that I provided.
Okay, we'll say NPC then. I'll drop my dissenting
Okay.
vote and go with you guys.
There you go.
Pre-recorded
Captain Quinn says,
character.
yeah, he's a
That's it.
PRC.
PRC. We have the new terminology. Yeah, it's probably one of my favourites as well. I think Foxy did absolutely knocked him out of the park. But I think my favourite NPCs may be one that I just called the Entity, and that was from the most recent horror.
Oh yes,
Character I created.
that
So,
horrifying
I
thing.
created that first time I've ever written, like, other than just like on the fly, making it up as I go along. Make it all up as I go along. What am I saying? But yeah, that was the first AP I've ever sat down and written. I just want to see how you guys would do an Event Horizon. Basically,
We did pretty good.
We didn't die.
Yeah, we survived. That's what we can say.
we didn't burn them. Yeah, it cost Davok an eye. Oh dear. So, looking at my sheet, so of course we have lots of player characters as well. So Zankir, Bav, Gronak, of course, played by Chris. Is there a reason you chose a Tellarite specifically?
So I read the Tellarite description and how they just like to debate and argue and criticize as like a social construct. And I thought it would be hilarious to have a Tellarite as the ship's counselor. And that's where the entire idea of Zankir came from.
Excellent, excellent. Of course, he's Section 31 liaison, isn't he?
He is, yes, which is a very interesting.
Was maybe, or is?
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, sure.
Who knows where we are with Section 31?
Who knows? Who knows? We don't need to say any more about that.
Oh no,
that's for Section 31 to decide.
Watching. There are spoilers for the shows that have gone previously. No spoilers for next season, except that one where the Livingstone blows up. And Tana Sul as well. Your backup character now.
Tana, I create the worst characters. No, I just had this idea that I wanted to play a super, like, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, religious zealot from Bajor, which I just thought would be a hilarious idea, which it was. It was very enjoyable to play despite the constant breaking of the Prime Directive.
Excellent. And just a quick note. So, I had written in my notes for the scientist, because I had lots of layers on top. I had big bold letters written next to the scientist description. West Country accent. Then Tana spoke. It's like Yorkshire accent.
I'm so glad I got the chance to claim that flag before you did, because my accents are limited. That's what I can do. I still slipped out of it a couple times when I was doing it, but it's one of the few I can actually manage.
Absolutely brilliant. And yeah, we'll come on to Ben's question in a moment, but I want to talk about Captain Alan Wagner. And what is Alan making of this crew that he's taken on so far? It's all a bit bizarre, isn't it?
He's working hard to bridge that gap that's there. There's this big secret that hangs over the Livingstone that he's not privy to, and that he's trying to approach that. He's trying to find an angle in on that, a way to understand it, and thereby understand the crew. Because from his point of view, he sees Commander Ral, who he thinks is a fine officer, be busted down from captain under fairly mysterious circumstances. And then he sees a crew that continue to hide this secret of, well, what caused this? Like, what are these mysterious circumstances? And that all doesn't quite add up for him. But he's a captain who really believes in standing by your crew, in trying to be the best captain for them that you can be. So yeah, it's a struggle for Alan at the moment. But I feel like over the last couple of episodes, especially with a couple of the characters, he's beginning to just about break through.
Okay, even though they go shooting their own eyes out.
Yeah.
Well, we have a shared trauma now. Yeah.
That's a good point. Shared PTSD. I like it. And of course, Kitus Valor as well. Now, I didn't hear a great deal from Kitus.
Yeah, I think Kitus didn't. He shot some stuff. He came in handy, sort of sensing with his telepathic abilities when bugs were about to jump out and attack us. It was quite good fun playing a kind of an against type Beta Z who used their sort of empathy and telepathic intuition for combat reasons rather than sort of ship's council. I guess almost the inverse of what Chris was saying, where there was you're playing against type but in a different direction kind of thing. So hopefully maybe we'll see a bit more of Kitus in the future. Who knows?
I'm hoping so. And of course, we've got to mention Elin Rahl and Reggie, played by Ed, quite often both at the same time. Oh dear. Now he's been made security chief. So he's first officer and security chief. That's quite an ask. We've got Bosch and First, of course, played by Matt. First we haven't heard from for some time.
Yeah, I think First is still in hiding, right? If I remember rightly. Or have we made First's existence public knowledge to the captain at this point?
I don't believe so.
I feel like First is still leaving the room just before I come in, kind of territory. Yeah. Exits through one door of the mess hall as I step in.
Yeah. Oh, is that the time? I better be off.
Well, let's hope First wasn't on board still when the Barrion sweep took place.
Someone go scrape up the puddle of First on deck 3.
That would be unfortunate. And Davok, I don't think, apart from Atlantis, I don't think Amy's ever had the need to play a different character.
I don't believe so.
There's a lot of sciencing in this game, isn't there?
Yeah,
there is.
A lot of sciencing. And of course, previously we've had Lee Varon, played by Usher, and Dugor Dozes, the half Bajoran, half Klingon, Klingon Defense Force operative. And just to list out some NPCs as well, we've mentioned Captain the Era, Derek and Eric, Roget's Thesaurus, which I absolutely love the name of. And someone put on a video, I think it was Walter, said gonna miss it, it's such a talker. We got when Roget's Thesaurus left the ship, I really had no words left to describe that situation. Oh dear. Zachary McGill, who we haven't heard a great deal of as yet. He's the chief engineer that Alan brought in with him. We had Sonia Gomez, of course, as an NPC. And the lower decks were all trying as a captain. It's like, shit, gotta get her off the ship and get her promoted quick. I say I try and stick within the lines of canon. Hopefully it fits in. But yeah, there we go. And of course, Admiral Colin Hubbard. Now that character was written as Admiral Hubbard. But I thought, let's give him a first name. And what other first name are we going to give Good old Colin Hubbard from the Danger Club podcast. Ben from Trek Wars and Fantasy had a question for you as players. What do you think of the character creation process in Star Trek Adventures?
I'll let Alistair take this first.
I definitely preferred it to the. Now I've got to remember which is which here. There was the Decipher system for Star Trek, and there was one before Decipher as well, which was kind of the series of books that was just, it was the tail end of the 90s, early 2000s. And I have played that iteration of Star Trek RPG a fair bit, and I prefer the Modifius character creation system to that. I feel kind of like the rules set for the game itself, the character creation does a very good job of leaving you with a character that first and foremost feels like they're a person, a character in a Star Trek TV show, rather than a real person living in the Star Trek universe. The old system, I think, focused more on the idea of what would it be like if your character was actually living out a life in Star Trek world, whereas I think Modifius and the 2D20 do a very good job of saying, well, Star Trek's a TV show. Your character is a character that inhabits a TV, a kind of TV world. So yeah, I had fun sort of dreaming up a character that was a bit more, felt like there was a bit more fiction behind them, and they lived with less constraints to having to feel like they were, sort of tied too closely to the reality of the Star Trek universe.
Would that be FASA?
Yeah.
You're talking about?
I think, right, I'm going to do some Googling while Chris answers, and I will have an answer for you when we come back.
Yeah, I think to build on what Alistair said, I've played a lot of different RPG systems, and I've looked through the books for a lot more than I've actually played, and like built test characters out for each of them. And I think there's something that Star Trek Adventures does where you start off with this loose framework of a person. It's like, I know what this person's species is. I know which planet they come from. And then as you go through the process, it just narrows it down, and you get this more defined character with each step of the process. And then it peppers in enough sections where it's asking you questions like, hey, you've got a war wound. How did you get that? Like, what were you doing to get this lasting wound? Or you lost a friend in an accident, describe that accident. And it just gives you so many opportunities to add flavor to a character that aren't about stats. Because the stats in Star Trek Adventures are pretty simplistic as it goes. It's not like, D&D 3rd edition where it's like every number changes about 1,000 other numbers. It's very simple. You got 2 sets of numbers that you need to look at, and that's really it. It just does a much better job of defining the person of the character and not the numerical value of the character.
And for those playing along at home, Last Unicorn Games was the publisher I was trying to remember that provided the Star Trek role-playing games of my youth. So yeah, that was that.
Right. Okay. Interesting. Let's talk for a bit about Star Trek Atlantis. So in the last season, so season 2, which started just before the first horror AP. So we started just before Halloween. We ended just after Halloween, so it was just over a year. If I tell you that we've done 39 episodes and a Klingon special in the last season. Now, Alistair, obviously it was before you joined, and Chris, I know you weren't available for a lot of the Atlantis ones, but how many episodes do you think the Atlantis took up of those 39?
Oh, it was a lot, wasn't it? Like 12? 12 or 13.
Yeah, I was going to guess a dozen as well. Yeah.
7. Only
Really?
7.
Wow.
Feels like so much more, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It really feels like so much more. Set in 2269, I wasn't going to ask you.
Yeah. No.
And which, interesting for anybody who's like into the minutiae of this, is the same year that both the original series 3 and the first season of the animated series took place.
Interesting.
It was canonically the 5th year of Kirk's first 5-year mission in 2369. So we were on board the USS Atlantis now, which is a Constitution class vessel, or was rather. Bless her. Now, in the adventure path as written, so this is like the introduction to the Shackleton Expanse. It gives you the opportunity to go back to the original series area. You don't have to within the book, but I thought it would be a fun thing to do. And they put you on a ship called the Lexington, which essentially we just renamed, made it our own. But it was originally the Lexington. Now, the Atlantis had the registry NCC 2801. And test your memory from this stream alone. Why was it 2801?
28th of January.
Yes, absolutely.
Well done, Chris.
Just checking if you're paying attention there.
Well, I was also around when we were coming up with the registration of that ship, so I was part of that discussion.
I forgot that. And of course, like, you only really had one major NPC in that, and that was Admiral Stoker, the one who merged with the Arachnid, or was being controlled.
Oh,
by
yes, yeah.
But of course, you had Lieutenant Kaveen, Captain Matthew Webb, Commander Helen Alward, and Lieutenant Rick Sweeper as well. And
love me some Sweeper.
Dr. Fabian Wendell. Didn't Dan do an amazing job?
Just incredible. I mean, Dan is a very, very specific kind of role player in that he doesn't get to play often. So when he does, he really goes ham with it.
Yes. We had him guesting on the first few episodes of Tales from the 20 side when we kicked that off, and he played a Leshy rogue. Augusto Ramirez. Basically a broccoli. So there we go. Gosh, we've covered it all. So yeah, 39 episodes. Just going back to 2380, just for anyone who's interested in this kind of thing. 2380 being when Livingstone is set, of course. In that year, as well as the entire events of season 1 of Lower Decks. If you haven't watched it yet, go watch it. It's brilliant. But as well as that, there was one other thing that happened of note that I could find, which is that was the year that Jean-Luc Picard received the Dignified Person Award from Vulcans.
Good. Yes. Okay.
Well done, JL.
Given to people who display the traits. What's the phrasing? Like most inherently defined by IDIC, infinite diversity and infinite combinations. So he received that on Vulcan, as was mentioned in the latest season of Picard. There you go. Facts. We love facts. Now, we started right at the beginning, before I switched your sound on, Alistair. I asked you if a Vulcan landed on Earth tomorrow and you want to get them watching Star Trek Livingstone, how would you describe it to them? So let's see what you've got.
It's funny. I kind of feel like we've talked about my answer during the stream now. So yeah, Livingstone's a role-playing game that's been running for a while now. So when you drop in the stream, if you enjoy what you see, you have this huge backstory that you can go and dig into and get to know the characters even better. And I always think that's a real treat when you find a stream or a podcast that you enjoy, to be able to know that you have 2 seasons worth to go and look back on, is always awesome. And the other thing that I would say is that you never know quite how a Livingstone adventure is going to end. There's always a twist in the tale somewhere. So that's got to recommend it as something fun to check out too.
Excellent. Chris, is there anything you'd add for this Vulcan?
Oh, to our elevator pitch. I think my first protocol would be to tell people that the Livingston, if you enjoy watching a group of people just trying to be good despite all evidence to the contrary, you're going to enjoy Livingston. It's we make the wrong decision, but we get away with it most of the time. And I think there's some joy and some wonder in that. And we have a good time while we're doing it.
That's the absolute key thing. I mean, I have to tell you as GM, there are always consequences.
Yeah.
There are always consequences. But that's absolutely fantastic. Well, thank you both for joining on this Livingston special. Thank you, everyone, for watching and for posting your questions in the chat as well. Should we have another quick look at the season 3 preview as well?
Let's do it.
This was for our viewers. This is a scene that is coming up at some point. We haven't said when, but at some point in season 3, this is what's going to happen. Oh dear. It's all going to go horribly, horribly wrong. And
Say goodbye.
It dream sequence must be a dream sequence.
That's definitely going to happen. This isn't Dallas. Oh dear me. Well, that's it from us. So thank you for joining. Make sure that you join us next week for when we go back to a standard Warped Wednesdays, where we've got news, reviews, unboxing, that sort of thing. I'm going to be bringing along my rubber ducks. What's that about? Tune in and find out. And in a fortnight's time, when we restart season 3 of Star Trek Livingstone, make sure you don't miss that. In the meantime, you don't stop playing because you grow old.
You grow old because you stop playing.
Hey, that's it. Live long and prosper, everyone. Take care. Bye.